in a forgotten corner of a big, bustling city, where thousands of footsteps rush by every day and neon lights blur into the night sky, there lived a girl named Zariah. She was only 13 years old. Her skin carried the richness of deep earth in her eyes. Her eyes carried stories no child should ever be forced to hold. Zariah didn't have a home. Some nights she slept in the shadows of abandoned buildings, her small frame curled up against the cold concrete. Other nights she found a park bench, hoping the harsh wind wouldn't cut through the thin fabric of her clothes. And when the rain came down too heavy, she would hide behind dumpsters, praying she could stay dry until morning. This was Zariah's reality, but it hadn't always been this way. Just a year ago, her life looked different. She lived with her mother in a tiny rented room, walls cracked, the roof sometimes leaking, but it was theirs. They survived day by day, hand in hand. Her mother worked 2 jobs, cleaning houses in the morning and waiting tables at night. She would often skip her own meals just to make sure Zariah never went to bed hungry. Life was hard, painfully hard, but inside that tiny room there was laughter. Bedtime stories, whispered dreams about the future. Life was difficult, yes, but there was love. And love to Zariah was everything. Her mother fell seriously ill. At first it was just tiredness, a cough here and there. But soon her body weakened and the sickness grew heavier. They had no insurance, no family to lean on, no savings to rely on. Zariah, only a child, could only watch helplessly as her mother's strength faded before her eyes. One cold evening, in a hospital that demanded bills before treatment, Zariah held her mother's hand. And with tears streaming down her face, she heard her mother whisper her last words. "You are stronger than the world, Zariah. Don't let it break you." And with that final breath, Zariah's world shattered. That very night she became an orphan, and soon after, homeless. The streets were not kind. People passed her by, their eyes sliding away as if she were invisible. She was hungry most days, cold every night, and fear became her constant companion. At 13 years old, Zariah faced a world most adults would crumble under. But deep inside, she held on to something her mother had given her, a seed of strength. Every morning, when the city woke and the streets grew alive, Zariah walked to a public library. At first, it was simply a place to stay warm, a place to escape the biting chill of the wind outside. But soon it became more. She discovered books, math, science, poetry, worlds she had never known before unfolded in her hands. She devoured stories of heroes, explorers, dreamers. But most of all, she loved the stories where broken girls became warriors, where forgotten children rose to greatness. In those pages she found hope. And hope kept her ally. One day, desperate for a bathroom, she tried to sneak into the back of a school building. She was caught by a teacher, Ms. Rivera. Now, Zariah expected anger, scolding, maybe even to be thrown out, but instead, Ms. Rivera looked into her eyes and saw something different. She saw not just a homeless child, but a spark. Potential. That moment would change everything. Ms. Rivera reached out. She connected Zariah with a social worker. She arranged a safe foster home with a kind elderly couple. And she made sure Zariah could return to school. At first, Zariah was scared. She thought it was temporary, that it would all vanish the next morning. But it didn't. For the first time in months, she had a bed to sleep in. She had warm meals. She had someone asking her how her day was. She was seen. She was cared for. Years passed, and Zariah didn't just survive. She thrived. She threw herself into learning, the way she once threw herself into books at the library. She won academic awards. She became a voice for her school newspaper. She stood on small stages, giving speeches about homelessness, strength, and second chances. Each time she spoke, people listened because her words were not just words. They were lived truth. By the time she turned 18, Zariah's dreams had carried her far. She received a full scholarship to one of the top universities in the country. On the night before leaving for college, she returned to the library, the place where it all began. She walked through the aisles, touched the spines of the books that had once been her only friends, and whispered a silent thank you. Tears filled her eyes, but this time they weren't just tears of sorrow. They were tears of triumph. Years later, Zariah became more than just a success story. She became a voice for children still living in the shadows she once knew. She opened her own center for homeless youth, and she named it Tomorrow's Place. Because she understood better than anyone, sometimes all a child needs is one safe tomorrow, one helping hand, one open door. At Tomorrow's Place, no child would ever have to wonder if anyone cared. At the grand opening ceremony, Zariah stood before hundreds of people, her voice steady but her heart full. She said, "I once lived with nothing but fear and a book in my hands. But that book gave me dreams. And today I give those dreams back to the children who need them most. No matter how dark today feels, tomorrow is coming." And as the crowd erupted in applause, Zariah's eyes shone. She was no longer the forgotten girl hiding on a park bench. She was a leader, a dreamer, a beacon of hope. And most importantly, she was living proof that even the darkest night cannot stop the dawn.